When he sees his ex waiting for an Uber with 3 kids identical to him, the millionaire freezes. Before we dive into the story, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love knowing how far our stories are reaching. And if you love emotional love stories filled with twists and heartwarming endings, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss a single story and help this space grow even more. Shall we? Today's story starts now. Clara. Jensen still remembered the sound of crystal glasses clinking in the main hall, the classical music echoing between the golden columns, and the way the chandelier lights reflected off every inch of the white orchid arrangements. The night was supposed to be just another event for the Texas elite, the kind she helped organize as a production assistant. But that night, she and Ryan Carter Whitmore became real to each other, as if the world had paused for a few minutes amidst that dazzling chaos. Clara was a 25-year-old woman, fair-skinned, with freckles dusted across her nose and shoulders, dark blonde wavy hair down to her waist usually tied in a simple bun. Her grayish-green eyes always seemed to hold a secret. She wore a black, rolled-up sleeve shirt, dark jeans, and comfortable sneakers, invisible among the tuxedos and silk dresses. But Ryan saw her. He was the opposite of everything she knew. Tall, athletic build, lightly tanned from summers on private yachts, straight light brown hair perfectly cut, and grayish-blue eyes that seemed to watch everything with skepticism. He was 32, heir to an investment empire, surrounded by expectations he never chose. They met for the first time behind the scenes in the hall, when she was trying to fix a sound glitch and he was escaping a group of boring investors. "Need a hand?" he asked, crouching beside her without ceremony. Clara looked at him warily. "You're one of the owners. I could get fired just for answering you the wrong way." Ryan smiled with a sincerity rare in his world. "Then answer me right." From that night on, they started meeting in secret. First quick coffees in discreet places. Then entire afternoons locked in his apartment, where she discovered that behind the suit and coldness was a man hurt by a suffocating childhood and a mother who treated love as weakness. For 3 months, they lived a secret love, a real love. But for Ryan, the price of loving Clara seemed to grow each day. When she looked for him on a cloudy afternoon, hands trembling and a positive pregnancy test in her pocket, he hugged her. Without a word. They spent hours in silence on his white leather couch. Then he broke the silence. "I want this baby. I want you." But 2 days were enough for everything to change. His mother, Eleanor Whitmore, stormed into the penthouse like an elegant tempest. Tall, porcelain white skin, blonde hair and a stiff bun, and a presence that chilled the air. She didn't yell. She threatened with cold smiles and legal documents. "You're throwing your inheritance away for an employee with a scandal in her belly?" she asked, calm but venomous. "She's carrying my child," Ryan replied firmly. "Not for long. I assume you know what we can do to her reputation. Poor nannies with scandalous stories don't last long in the media. You choose, Ryan, her, or everything you've built." That same night, Clara was called by Ryan to the empty parking lot of the company's building. She got out of the car confused, her hair loose in the wind, eyes full of hope. "What happened? You seem distant." Ryan looked at her for long seconds, as if fighting himself. But when he spoke, his voice was cold. "This between us is over." She stood in silence for a moment, not believing it. "What?" "It was a mistake. I was confused. You misunderstood everything. You can't be serious." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she stood firm. "I'm pregnant." "Ryan, pregnant with your child." "Don't blame me for your choices," he replied, turning his back. Clara felt the world crumble beneath her feet. She didn't cry there. She just turned around and left, leaving behind the last chance to fight. The following week, she vanished. Changed her address, blocked all contacts, quit her job, and survived doing odd jobs, refusing help from anyone in her past. What Ryan never knew is that she wasn't just carrying one child. She was carrying three. Clara drove all night, her eyes burning and her hands trembling on the steering wheel of the old car she had borrowed from a coworker. She didn't know exactly where she was going. She just knew she had to disappear. With every mile she put between herself and the Whitmore name, something inside her broke, and something stronger was born. The three hearts beating in her womb didn't ask for luxury or safety, they asked for courage. She found a small one-room apartment on the outskirts of East Austin, where ambulance sirens weren't as frightening as the silence of the choices she had been forced to make. An old building with rusted window frames and a worn-out hallway carpet, but one that accepted cash rent and asked no questions. Clara had raised the triplets alone from day one, refusing help, refusing pity. She worked as a waitress at a roadside diner during the day, and at night, she picked up shifts as a nanny for families who didn't even know her full name. "It's Jensen, just Jensen," she'd say whenever someone asked. She never mentioned the father's name, not to doctors, not to the government, not to nosy neighbors whispering in the hallways. She registered the boys with her surname like a shield. Ethan, Noah, and Liam. Three little boys with grayish-blue eyes who, day by day, looked more and more like Ryan. Every time one of them smiled, Clara's heart skipped a beat. But she never allowed herself to fall apart. She kept her hair tied back in a rushed bun, dark circles under her eyes that even the cheapest foundation couldn't hide. Their clothes came from church donations, and even so, Clara made sure the boys were always clean and well-dressed, even if it meant going 3 nights in a row without sleep. One day, while waiting in line at a health clinic with the 3 boys quietly around her, a woman behind her muttered loud enough to wound. 3 little kids, all the same, and not a dad in sight. Nowadays, anyone thinks being a mom is just about surviving. Clara didn't respond. She just looked at her children with tenderness and lowered her head. Ethan squeezed her hand. "Mommy, are you sad?" She smiled, swallowing the pain. "No, sweetheart, just tired." Social media. Clara avoided it like running from a fire. She never posted photos of the boys, never tagged locations. She had learned to disappear from the digital world to protect what she loved most. Meanwhile, Ryan Carter Whitmore graced the covers of business magazines, toasting at gala dinners with influential names and international models by his side. But inside, everything was hollow. He still believed Clara had used him, that she had faked the pregnancy as a trap. That version had been fed to him by his mother so many times, it had become truth in his eyes. "She wanted your fortune, Ryan. And when you said no, she vanished. That says it all?" He kept a single photo of her, hidden in a locked drawer in his office. On sleepless nights, he'd look at it in silence, full of anger and longing. But fate, silent and precise, was already writing the next chapter. An unexpected reunion was on the horizon, and nothing, not lies, not money, not time, could stop what was coming. On that muggy April morning, Clara was trying hard not to show her desperation. Her diner uniform still smelled like grease from the night before, but she was pressing a wrinkled white shirt with trembling hands as the triplets slept curled up on a makeshift mattress in the corner of the room. Ethan's eyes had been red. Since the early morning, Liam was coughing every 5 minutes, and Noah said everything hurt, even his eyelashes. Clara looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and whispered the same phrase she did every day before facing the world. "It's going to be okay. Just a little longer." She had landed an interview for an administrative assistant position at a new co-working space in Austin's business district, a sleek, glass-walled place full of startups and opportunity. It wasn't ideal with 3 small children, but it was her last chance before eviction. As she packed the boys' backpacks, her phone buzzed with a notification. Community clinic, appointment reminder, 9:15 a.m. Her heart dropped. The interview was at 9:40. The clinic was on the opposite side of town. I can't cancel. They have fevers. And I can't miss this job. She knelt between them and spoke softly. We're going together, okay? Mommy. Promises to buy cheese bread on the way back. At the public clinic, the waiting room was packed. Crying kids, exhausted mothers, a broken AC, and weary stares. Clara filled out forms quickly, tracking time like she was counting crumbs. My name is Jensen, Clara Jensen. 3 patients, all minors. Twins. Triplets, actually, said a man beside her, watching the boys with curiosity. Clara just nodded, clutching the paper's dot by the time they left the clinic. It was 10:08. She had already missed the interview. She almost went back home. But the pain in her children's eyes, the constant humiliation, the overdue rent, all pushed her feet forward. She dropped the boys off with a neighbor and ran to the co-working building, a mirrored skyscraper. That oozed luxury from every inch. The automatic doors opened with a blast of cool air, and she stepped in, feeling invisible in a world of high heels, sleek ties, and fake smiles. The receptionist was a young white woman with platinum blonde hair in a perfect ponytail. She wore a pale pink suit, acrylic nails, and a look that sized people up in seconds. Interview for admin assistant. Jensen, Clara Jensen, Clara said, trying to catch her breath. The receptionist typed something, looked at the screen, then at Clara, raising an eyebrow with disdain. The interview was at 9:40. It's 10:30. Selections are closed. I had a medical emergency with my kids. I'm sorry. The woman slid a paper toward her. You can leave your resume. If we need someone more reliable, we'll be in touch. Clara's face burned. She swallowed the lump in her throat, took the paper with dignity, and simply replied, "Thank you." She turned toward the elevator, eyes glassy, feeling the receptionist's judgment burn into her back. On the other side of the frosted glass wall, Ryan Carter Whitmore sat in a sleek meeting room surrounded by partners and financial projections. He wore a custom dark gray suit and was fiddling with his watch, ready to head to his next meeting. That's when he heard Clara's muffled voice echo from the reception, a voice he hadn't heard in almost 5 years. His body stiffened. Clara? But by the time he stepped out, the reception was empty. All that remained was a forgotten resume on the counter, with a name he knew, but that time had buried. 3 days later, Ryan was leaving the building of an international consultancy in Austin's financial district. The early afternoon heat made the asphalt shimmer, and sunlight reflected harshly off the mirrored windows of the skyscrapers. He walked with firm strides, clad in a flawless light gray suit and dark sunglasses, flanked by 2 executives discussing growth projections. Ryan wasn't listening. His thoughts were still stuck in the reception of the co-working space where he had seen a name that left him restless. He hadn't slept well since. Deep down, he knew it wasn't a coincidence. Something in his gut screamed that Clara was nearby, but his logic insisted it was all in his head. That's when, while crossing the street, his eyes caught something strange on the sidewalk near a bus stop. A woman crouched down, trying to calm 3 children, all speaking at once. One was crying, another yanking his backpack furiously, and the third was tapping his foot impatiently. Ryan slowed down. The woman had her hair tied in a messy bun, strands of dark blonde hair escaping around her face. She wore faded jeans and a wrinkled white t-shirt. She was kneeling, one knee dirty, tying a sneaker for one of the boys. And still, there was something about the way she touched the child's face that made the world around Ryan fade away for a few seconds. Come on, Ethan, breathe, baby. I know you're tired. Mommy is too. Just a little more, okay? The woman said, her voice soft but trembling. At the sound of that name, Ryan froze. Then the boy turned around. A small white boy, light skin, wavy light brown hair, and those unmistakable grayish-blue eyes that made Ryan's stomach drop. The boy stared at him for a second and smiled. That smile, it was the same one he saw in the mirror as a child. The same his mother used to call the Whitmore birthmark. Another boy, identical, tripped over his own feet and fell on his bottom. The woman turned sharply to help him, and that's when Ryan lost his breath. Clara? She froze, stayed completely still, on her knees, looking up as if she'd just heard a ghost from the past. Slowly, she turned her face in his direction. Their gray-green eyes met. Hers were sunken, tired, frightened. His were wide, disbelieving. Ryan. He took a step forward, hesitant. It's really you? You're here? Clara stood up slowly, gripping the children's hands. Fear was written all over her face. Real fear. You weren't supposed to see me, she whispered. Not like this. Who are they? Ryan's voice came out in a breath, his eyes scanning the three boys, three miniature versions of himself. Clara pressed her lips together but didn't answer. She just grabbed the backpacks, their little arms, and started walking away quickly. Clara, wait. Clara, look at me. He called out, no longer caring about his colleagues or the busy street around him, but she crossed without looking back, disappearing into the crowd with the boys clinging to her. Ryan stood there on the sidewalk, cars rushing by, the noise of the city swallowing everything, except for that silence inside him. The silence of someone who had just realized he'd lost 5 years of his life, and maybe 3 children. Ryan had spent the entire night sitting in the backseat of his car, parked in front of the crumbling building where he'd seen Clara enter with the children. He had rejected calls, canceled meetings, silenced calendar alerts. For the first time in years, the Whitmore empire was on pause. All that mattered now was the truth. The next morning, when he saw Clara leaving with the boys, he rushed to catch her before she could cross the street. Her hair was pulled into a rushed bun, and she carried 2 backpacks and a plastic bag with snacks. The triplets walked wearily, rubbing their sleepy eyes. As soon as Clara spotted Ryan approaching, she froze for a second. Then instinct took over. She grabbed the boy's hands and quickened her pace. Ryan chased after her, heart pounding. Double quotes, Clara, please, wait. I just want to talk. No, go away, she yelled without looking back. One of the boys tripped on the sidewalk and fell. Clara stopped, bent to help him up, and in that instant, Ryan caught up. Just listen to me. I need to know, Clara. Are they mine? She looked at him with eyes full of restrained tears. No makeup could hide the dark circles. There was no room for pretending, just an exhausted woman and a broken man standing face to face. You don't have that right, she said, taking a deep breath. You left me. You chose to walk away. I thought you lied to me. His voice rose, then cracked. I thought it was all a trap. You wanted to believe that. She stood up, gripping Liam's arm. Now it's too late. Then prove it. If you have nothing to hide, do the test. Give me that answer. Clara went silent. She looked at the boys, who were now watching her quietly, sensing the weight of the conversation even if they didn't understand the words. Then she turned. Back to Ryan. I'll do it, she said firmly. But on one condition, anything. You won't use the result to take them from me. Ever. I don't have money to fight you in court, Ryan, but I would give my life to never see my children torn away from me. Ryan nodded, swallowing hard. I swear, I just want the truth. 2 days later, they were at a discreet lab downtown. The atmosphere was cold and clinical, white walls, and the sharp scent of disinfectant. The boys were distracted with coloring, pencils and paper, while the assistant collected samples gently. Clara stood with her arms crossed the whole time, motionless. Ryan couldn't stop looking at the boy's features. The way Noah furrowed his brow was exactly how he did when annoyed. Ethan twirled his hair just like Ryan used to as a kid. And Liam even had the same crooked tooth Ryan had before. Braces. 1 week later, the envelope arrived. Clara waited on a wooden park bench while the boys played on the swings. Ryan walked toward her, envelope in hand, breathless. He stopped in front of her and offered it. "Do you want to open it?" She shook her head. "You do it." Ryan took a deep breath, tore open the seal with trembling hands. He read in silence, then his eyes filled with tears. "They're mine." His voice came out low, fragile, like someone realizing the ground beneath his feet had never really been there. Clara didn't answer. She just watched. Ryan slowly sat beside her, burying his face in his hands. "They're my sons, and I lost everything with them." Ethan ran up to his mother and climbed into her lap. Noah and Liam followed soon after. Clara wrapped her arms around them like she always did, with or without help. Ryan looked at them like time itself had taken form in 3 small faces. "How long were you going to keep this from me?" She met his teary gaze, steady, unwavering. "As long as I had to protect them." The revelation of fatherhood had shaken Ryan to the core. In the days that followed, he couldn't focus during meetings, ignored emails, declined every event invitation. For the first time in his life, the world of numbers and strategies had been invaded by something he couldn't calculate: regret. Clara, meanwhile, stayed in a state of constant alert. Even after the DNA results, she didn't trust Ryan's sudden change. She knew the weight of the Whitmore name. She knew his world could swallow hers in the blink of an eye. And then, what she feared most happened. One late afternoon, while Clara was serving coffee in a local diner, a woman with a rigid posture and a navy blue dress walked in, accompanied by a lawyer. She approached the counter like crossing a battlefield. Eleanor Whitmore, tall, white, blonde hair in a perfect bun, and a glacial expression. She looked at Clara like she was a lazy employee, not the mother of her own grandchildren. "We need to talk," Eleanor said with a fake smile. "I have nothing to say to you," Clara replied, frozen. "Oh, but you do. It's about my grandchildren." The lawyer handed Clara an envelope. She didn't need to open it. She felt the weight of the paper in her hands, and her stomach turned. "You filed a suit?" "For a strategic shared custody, yes. My grandchildren deserve structure, quality education, and protection from the impulsive decisions of an emotionally unstable mother." Clara blinked several times as if trying to wake up from a nightmare. "Unstable? I'm unstable because I'm poor? You're unstable because you hid 3 children from their father, worked night shifts in dangerous neighborhoods, and exposed them to risks. That's not motherhood. That's neglect disguised as sacrifice. I did everything alone because he chose to leave," Clara shouted. "And he didn't know about the kids because you destroyed the letter I sent." Eleanor's tone stayed calm. "Those accusations hold no weight in court, dear. What matters are the facts. And right now, the facts are not in your favor." When Clara got home, the boys were asleep, their little faces pressed together like they were trying to protect each other even in dreams. She leaned against the wall, slid down to the floor, and cried in silence. The next day, Ryan showed up at her door. He wore dark jeans, a gray t-shirt, no security, no driver. His eyes were hollow, worn down. Clara opened the door hesitantly. She filed the suit. "I know," he said, the weight in his voice unmistakable. "Did you know she'd do this?" "I figured she wouldn't stay quiet." But I didn't think it'd be this fast. Clara crossed her arms. She wants to take my kids, Ryan. Do you have any idea what that means to me? She's not going to win. You say that now, but in court? She has money, influence, and a last name that can buy any psych report. Ryan stepped closer. Do you really think I'll let that happen? I don't know what to believe anymore. Clara looked at him, eyes glassy. Maybe I should leave with them. Disappear again. Move to another state. Clara, no. If you run now, she. Use that against you. She already uses everything against me. Even the clothes I wear. I'm on your side, even if you don't want to believe it. She stared at him in silence, struggling to breathe. Her heart begged for shelter, but her mind saw only danger. Next morning, Ryan stood before his mother in the grand Whitmore estate. The tall windows let in too much light, but the room felt cold as ice. You had no right to do this without asking me, he said. I have every right to protect our family from scandal. They're my children, Mother. And you're about to throw your name, your inheritance, everything away for a woman. Who abandoned you? She didn't abandon me. You destroyed her letter. You blinded me. Watch your tone, Ryan. No, you watch yours. Because if Clara loses custody because of you, I swear, I'll cut ties with this name. And with you. Eleanor went silent, for the first time, with no answer, but Ryan knew. The lawsuit had already been filed, and across town, Clara was putting the boys to sleep and staring at the open suitcase on her bed. Documents, clothes, medicine, her old friend, escape. But something inside her resisted. She just needed to know. If Ryan was truly going to fight, the courtroom was as silent as a tomb. Clara sat beside her public defender, wearing a simple beige blouse and a borrowed dark skirt. Her hands clenched tightly in her lap, and her eyes swept the room in search of safety, but found no comforting gaze in that place of white walls and impersonal rules. Ryan, on the other side, wore a navy blue suit, a discreet tie, and a tense expression. For the first time, he seemed smaller than his last name. No security, no lavish legal team, just him and a trusted private attorney. His eyes kept shifting between Clara and the children, who were waiting in a separate room with a social worker. None of them knew that today, a long-buried truth would rewrite their lives. Eleanor Whitmore sat like a marble statue, legs crossed, lips tight. Her family's lawyer, a silver-haired man with a rehearsed voice, addressed the judge, painting Clara as unstable, under-resourced, impulsive. He used terms like unstable environment, vulnerable children, undefined emotional history. Clara didn't cry. She just listened, bleeding on the inside, but learning to endure in silence, until the courtroom door creaked open. An elderly man entered slowly, wearing an old blazer and a worn-out hat. His scuffed shoes echoed with each step. All heads turned. James Holloway, the Whitmore family's former driver for over 20 years. He walked toward the judge with short, steady steps and raised his hand. Sorry to interrupt, Your Honor, but I believe I have something that could change the course of this hearing. The judge nodded, surprised. And you are? I worked for the Whitmore family for over 2 decades, and I've kept this with me for a long time. But now I can't stay silent any longer. He pulled an old envelope from his blazer pocket, yellowed with time, edges frayed. This letter was left by Clara Jensen 5 years ago at the gate of the mansion, addressed to Mr. Ryan. I found it, but was instructed to hand it directly to Mrs. Eleanor. I never saw it again. Until today. Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, eyes wide. I wrote that letter. I begged for him to know. Ryan shot to his feet. Letter? What letter? James handed the envelope to the judge. The handwriting was clear. To Ryan, please. Read. The judge opened it, read silently, and then passed it to Ryan's attorney. The words were read aloud, each one like a blade. Ryan, I found out today I'm pregnant. I know you won't understand right now, but I don't want money or anything from you. I just needed you to know. You're going to be a father. Silence. Ryan staggered a step backward. This is real? This is really from Clara? She nodded, eyes glassy. James added, voice thick. Mrs. Eleanor ordered it destroyed, but I kept it. And now I understand the weight of what I did. Eleanor's lawyer tried to intervene, said the letter was irrelevant, that the hearing was about stability, not the past, but it was too late. Ryan looked at his mother, pain and fury etched in his face. You lied to me, made me believe. She used me. You kept me from my own children with a lie. Eleanor straightened her posture. I did what I had to do to protect you. Protect me from what? From being a father? From loving someone outside our circle? From ruining your life, Ryan. He stepped forward, voice cracking. You didn't ruin my life. You ruined my soul. The judge's gavel came down sharply, cutting through the tension. This hearing is suspended. The authenticity of the letter will be verified, and new measures will be determined. Clara left the courtroom pale, breathless, like someone who had just walked out of a fire. On the courthouse steps, Ryan caught up with her. You tried to tell me. She didn't answer, just looked at him with a sadness too deep to describe. You chose to believe what was easier, Clara whispered, voice barely above the wind. You didn't lose me because of your mother. You lost me because you didn't fight for me. Ryan felt his heart splinter, and this time there was no power, no wealth, no legacy strong enough to undo what fear had destroyed. The days following the hearing were silent for Clara, but not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that weighs on your shoulders, that tightens your chest. The kind of silence that comes when the truth finally surfaces, but doesn't heal everything. The letter had been real, so had the love. The lie hadn't been hers, but the pain. That had been hers alone. She started avoiding Ryan, didn't reply to his messages, ignored his calls, and only allowed supervised visits with the boys as mandated by the court. She clung to routine like a lifeline. Wake up early, pack the kids' lunches, walk them to the community daycare, and rush to her restaurant shift. But he was always there. On Monday, he showed up early with a package of children's books. On Tuesday, he brought 3 new lunchboxes with the boys' names embroidered by hand. On Wednesday, he left a hand-drawn map of a park and 3 tickets to a children's musical tucked into the mailbox. On Thursday, she confronted him, Clara. Saw him sitting in his car across the street, discreetly watching the daycare entrance. Ryan wore dark jeans and a rolled-up blue shirt. His beard was unshaven, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. When he realized she'd seen him, he got out slowly, like he was afraid to scare her away. You need to stop this, Ryan. I'm not here to pressure you, but you're following me. I just wanted to see them. She crossed her arms, steady. They're not a project for you to work on to ease your guilt. I know. He took a step closer. I don't want to be a hero. I just want to be there. Now? Clara let out a dry laugh. Now you want to be present? I messed up. I was a coward. And I know there's nothing I can do to erase what happened, but I can start doing the right thing now. She took a deep breath, holding back the storm inside. You chose to walk away before fighting for me. So don't try to save me now when everything's already broken. Ryan nodded in silence, each word like a verdict. You think toys and daycare drop-ins will fix this? I spent nights holding all 3 while they cried with fevers, while we had no food, no rent money. Alone. And now you show up. Like that's enough? It's not enough, Clara, I know. But it's what I can give, one step at a time. I'm not here to rewrite the past. I'm here because they're my chance to get something right. Her eyes dropped for a moment and her hardened face cracked just a little. I look at them and I see you. Every day. And sometimes that still hurts. Ryan said nothing. Just lowered his head, absorbing the blow. I'll keep showing up, he said softly, even if you don't look at me. Even if you don't talk to me. Not out of pride. But for them, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that presence isn't something you buy. It's something you build. That evening, Clara watched from a distance as he knelt to play with the boys in the playground. Ethan hugged him without hesitation. Noah laughed at the stories he told. Liam hesitated, but eventually stepped forward with a toy car in hand. She stood behind the fence, tears in her eyes, unseen. Her heart, scarred and cautious, beat with a strange mix of sorrow and hope. It wasn't love, not yet. But it wasn't anger anymore. Either. It was just timed out. Rebuilding didn't begin with an apology or a hug. It began in silence. In the days following the quiet, "Daddy, can you pass me the blue crayon?" Clara felt something shift inside her, as if a part of her long-guarded heart was beginning to soften. But it wasn't surrender. Not yet. It was vigilance. The trauma of being left alone, pregnant with 3 children, didn't disappear just because he was present now. But he was present, and that alone already felt like a miracle. Clara started noticing the small things. Ryan showed up early at the community center, even when it rained. He swept the sidewalks, stacked boxes, brought coffee to volunteers, and offered rides to anyone in need. He didn't do it with grand speeches about being a changed man. He just did it. The women in the neighborhood began to talk. Did you see? The triplets' dad's the one cleaning the room after meetings now. They say he cut ties with his mom, that Eleanor girl. If that man hasn't changed, he's putting on one hell of a show. Clara heard it all in silence, pretending not to care. But inside, the ground beneath her feet was slowly changing texture. On Ryan's end, the changes were deep and painful. By the end of winter, he had cut ties with the Whitmore legacy. He stepped down from the family holding, sold his inherited shares, and ended all contact with Eleanor after one final conversation. "You chose scandal," Eleanor had said, her voice cold. "No, Mother," Ryan replied. "I chose my children." "You chose to live in a world where love is weakness." Without the family name to shield him, Ryan started from scratch. With the sale of his assets, he founded Projeto Raise, a private initiative to support single mothers in vulnerable situations. He rented an old abandoned warehouse in East Austin and personally renovated it, wall by wall. It became a haven, offering workshops, job training, therapy, donations. But more than anything, dignity. And then came the invitation he never thought she'd accept. Clara was walking between shelves in the supply room, sorting donated toys with a clipboard in hand. She wore worn jeans, simple sneakers, and a white t-shirt with the project's name hand-stitched across the front. Her hair was in a high ponytail, her skin pale under the fluorescent lights, but her eyes had never looked more alive. "Clara," Ryan said, holding a document. "I need you as my official partner, right here, in writing. I don't want you to work for this project. I want you to be part of it." She looked up, caught off guard. "You're offering me partnership?" "I'm offering what I should have offered from the beginning: equality, recognition, trust." She went quiet, holding her breath. "You know this doesn't erase the past, right?" "I know, but it can change what comes next." She took the contract home, left it on the table for 3 days, unable to sign. Every line screamed the memory of when she'd been left with ultrasound pictures in her bag and no certainty in her heart. But each day that Ryan showed up exhausted, committed, helping with homework, running out for milk, Hauling donation bags, something inside her slowly opened. On the fourth night, Ethan came up with a crayon-doodled paper in hand. "I drew us." "Look, Mommy, that's Daddy. He comes every day now." Clara stared at the drawing. There they were, the four of them, holding hands, all smiles. "Daddy," written in crooked, hopeful letters across the page. The next day she returned to the warehouse. Said nothing. Just handed Ryan the signed contract. He looked at her, eyes misty. No speeches. Just a firm handshake. They began working together daily. Clara led the community mothers, organized events, ran support groups, and created a reintegration program for women with no job experience. Ryan handled the structure, legal matters, and logistics, always in her shadow, honoring the space he had once taken away. The children adapted naturally. There was no formal announcement. No starting today, he's your dad. It just happened. One evening, after an impromptu picnic in the park, Ryan lay on the grass with all three boys piled on top of him, giggling as he pretended to be a slow-motion monster trying to catch them. "Catch me if you can, Daddy," Noah shouted, wriggling out of his arms. From a distance, Clara watched from a wooden bench, a cup of tea warming her hands. The breeze played gently with her loose hair. She didn't cry. She simply smiled. A small smile, tired, but peaceful. And for the first time in years, she felt like the world wasn't working against her anymore. She had lost everything, but right in front of her was something she never knew she could rebuild. A home. The spring. Sun spread across the Austin sky like a reminder that time doesn't stop, but it can heal. In the courtyard of the small public school where Ethan, Noah, and Liam had spent the last 2 years, parents gathered with phones in hand, trying to capture the best angle of the graduation ceremony. There were colorful balloons tied to the fences, handmade banners created by the children, and a table covered in cupcakes, juice, and paper napkins decorated with crooked hearts and stars. Clara adjusted the simple white linen dress she'd found at a thrift store, but it fit her just right, wrapping around a waist marked by stories. Her dark blonde hair was tied in a low bun, with a few loose strands framing her face. Her makeup was light, almost invisible, but the shine in her eyes said everything. She had made it. Ryan walked beside her in a rolled-up button-down shirt and dark jeans, his light brown hair messier than usual. No suit, no fancy watch, no armor. It was just him. A regular man, here to be a father. He held 3 small bouquets of flowers, one for each child. As they neared the chairs, he turned to Clara and said quietly, "You look beautiful." She smiled, soft but measured. The kind of smile he had learned to respect. Not passion, but trust. And for Clara, trust was everything now. Thanks. But today, it's their time to shine. The 3 boys sat in the front row, wearing navy blue gowns and crooked graduation caps. Noah spun his cap around non-stop. Liam stared at the stage like a theater director. And Ethan, spotting his parents, waved with both hands, beaming a smile. That said, "I did it." When each name was called, Clara instinctively reached for Ryan's hand. And he held it, firm, silent. After the certificates were handed out, the parents were allowed to approach. Ryan crouched down to give them their flowers. "For you 3. For being the biggest little heroes I know." Ethan hugged his neck. Noah jumped into his arms. And Liam, always the cautious one, approached slowly and said, "You'll come to my first grade graduation too, right?" Ryan smiled, eyes misty. "Every single one. For every stage of your life." Clara stood a few steps behind, watching. She felt pride, yes, but also a deeper emotion only solo mothers who've survived everything can understand. The feeling of arriving whole, in a place the world was sure she'd never reach. A year earlier, she didn't know where she'd be living. Now she ran her own micro-business, organizing social events. It started with small church parties and backyard weddings, but her meticulous, heartfelt work quickly spread across neighborhoods. Now she had contracts with schools, community centers, even local businesses. It wasn't fame. It was dignity. Ryan stayed involved, quietly, respectfully. He didn't interfere. He supported. He paid for the boys' schooling, helped with doctor visits, attended parent meetings, cooked on alternate weekends. Slowly, he reclaimed the space he'd once abandoned. Clara still didn't say she had forgiven him, but she no longer had to protect the children from him. That alone was progress. In love, it didn't return in a rush. It wasn't a romantic drama. It rebuilt itself in real-life rhythm. A rainy Saturday with cartoons. A pancake-filled Sunday. A Wednesday of quiet that no longer hurt. They weren't married, didn't even talk about it, but they shared bills, memories, commitments, and something stronger than a ring: presence. A group of children called the boys to run around the playground. Ethan pulled Noah's hand, and Liam ran to Clara. "Mommy, can I go?" "Go ahead, just don't lose your hat." He ran off laughing, and Clara turned to Ryan. "Do you still wonder if all this is real?" Ryan looked at her seriously, then at the kids running free, and back to her. "I don't know if it's real, but it's everything I've ever wanted. I just figured it out too late." She nodded. Not every abandonment is permanent, but every new beginning takes courage. He finished. They sat in silence for a few moments, watching their children play. There was still an entire world to sort through. The future. The quiet wounds that still stung. The shadow of the Whitmore. Name that doesn't vanish overnight. But for the first time, neither of them was running. There was no escape. No judgment. There was a path, and the triplets? They laughed together, hand in hand, running in circles around a swirl of colored chalk. On the ground, they laughed freely, innocently, with the lightness of children who had been loved even through the chaos. Because in the end, it wasn't money or titles or apologies that healed their story. It was time. It was effort. It was the courage to begin again. And that's the lesson. Not every abandonment is permanent, but every new beginning takes courage. And now I want to know, what did you think of this story? Drop your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and tell me which part touched your heart the most. If this story moved you in any way, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone special, and subscribe to the channel to catch more stories like this one. Before you go, I've already selected another emotional story that's sure to move you even more. Just click and watch. See you there.